Well, at the risk of going on, I know I've said this before, but the great thing I think about having this spiral curriculum structured around clear outcomes in the SEAL materials is that we can develop the themes in line with the individual context and needs of the school. So we're building on and developing the sorts of activities outlined in the materials, but keeping them up to date with the school, local, national, even world events and issues, so we can always be adding to our resource. We found that as teachers and schools get more confident in this area with the learning outcomes, either the SEAL learning outcomes or the health and wellbeing AOLE progression steps in Wales, we see so many great creative ideas coming our way, things that teachers have found or ideas that they've had themselves. And the idea of the SEAL community, of course, is that we're able to share those with you. Now, if you've watched the other videos in this series of collections of videos, you'll know that for each primary theme, there's a book list available of titles focusing on all the kind of sub-themes that we've been looking at within the changes theme and loss and bereavement. So they're organised by year group, but the problem is, of course, that they are a little bit out of date. If you search on the SEAL community site, however, for book lists, updated lists for many of our topics will be shown, and these have been contributed by ourselves and by teachers over time. So, but it's a good basic list of the classics to return to those book lists from the original SEAL materials. You can watch the Anthony Browne's absolute classic book, Changes, because of course the wonderful thing now is that a lot of these books are available on YouTube, being read aloud, and sometimes by the authors themselves, as I said earlier. Really worth, doing a quick search, and hopefully we've done some of that for you in the videos and in the accompanying resource sheets. So you can watch Anthony Browne's Changes being read aloud at this link, and when you've done that, you can develop the work in your own way, or the way we're going to show you now, the way that one teacher did it on the next slide. So these activities here were developed by a primary practitioner, linking it to the SEAL activities on identifying different types of change. So there were discussion topics: what was the biggest change you've ever had in your life? How did it make you feel? What were the bad points or the good points about the change? And then they used that kind of discussion to collect and chart the changes that children had experienced over time. And they made a pictogram of the least and the most common and so on. And they also did a ranking activity, which of those changes did they find easy or difficult to cope with, and was this the same for everybody, and so on. So lots of activities that kind of came out of that one particular book that this teacher had chosen. This activity relates to the making change happen sort of subtopic, and we say don't ask them to bring in £1, but get them to raise £1 and collectively decide which charity it should go to. There are 2 examples on this slide, which you'll have a moment to read in a second, but 2 examples of ways that children have made change happen in their community. There's also a video in one of the previous slides about ways that children at a school in Australia actually created change in their environment and within society more broadly. And there's a link for that one as well, which would be a really good development. I think the key thing is to link any activities like these to the changes thing, to emphasise that key message that we can make a difference and that children's voices do make a difference. So you might link that to all sorts of things like, the school council or the influence that similar groups have had on how the school is run, or what happens to recycling and so on with eco-warriors and other groups that have been set up more recently in schools. And the aim is always to develop children's sense of agency, of their kind of self-efficacy, their belief in the importance of their contribution. And, you know, it's that purpose that these kind of activities serve. Have a look at those two examples So reflecting on change is as important as anticipating it. We looked in year 6 at anticipating that change of the transition and what might happen and how they might manage that. But actually reflecting on changes that have happened during the year is equally important. This is a lovely video that we had our attention drawn to. It has 4 activities to encourage end of year reflections. Probably suitable, I would think, for upper primary and secondary school primarily. But those last few weeks of school, they really offer a good opportunity for children to look back on challenges that they've overcome, to celebrate achievements, and to think about really, you know, what's going to happen next year, what they're looking forward to, and so on. So the activities, the 4 activities, which are kind of outlined here, are gratitude notes, personal reflections that can be shared, letters to your future self, which is a nice, really good activity, I think, and vision boards, you know, collages, for example, of hopes and dreams for the future, goal-setting activities to kind of make them become a reality. So, you know, these are some really good, nice ideas for those kind of older students to use to reflect back on the year that they've had. Oh, this is a really nice one. The River to the Sea. This was a project from the Place to Be, a national charity, for students in their final year. So it links very much to that transition theme. And the project aims to support them in feeling ready for transition to secondary school by providing a kind of creative opportunity for them to think about their time at primary school and the changes ahead, as they use this kind of metaphor of the, you know, the river flowing and them sailing upon it to their secondary or high school. There's an address there for the link and all sorts of activities that can be used within that kind of overall project. So some really nice stuff to share with both Year 6 teachers and children there. Worth saying as well that this topic of change can be used to springboard PSHE topics. So I like to call this applied SEAL. So using everything that they've learned about change, about empathy and so on, to consider specific topics. So for secondary students, possibly to develop or to address issues of kind of personal growth and change, so links to sexuality and gender may be particularly engaging and of interest to young people. And there's quite a lot of useful resources again on the web. This was an example of a kind of really good short film that can be used to develop empathy for students identifying as non-binary, for supporting students within school who do identify as non-binary. As always, you know, watch these yourself first, make sure you're comfortable with the content, and then have some activities to kind of focus the students' thoughts and attention while they're watching, and thinking also about how you might prepare them for this kind of applied SEAL. And finally, I think one of the loveliest kind of practice examples of practice that we found was this wonderful school website. And I think we all felt really at the SEAL community that this represented some of the best practice that we've seen. It's really great to see this. On this particular school website, the Stour Valley Community School, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but there's a whole section on wellbeing. So this is available to staff, parents, children, and, you know, anybody who wants to go to it on the web. the videos and websites that are recommended, the resources on bereavement and loss are really, really good. Lots of specifics there, but it also covers a whole load of other areas, you know, that might be helpful in terms of change and, you know, PSHE development as a whole. So just love the idea of a kind of school website, you know, having these resources there for staff and parents and young people. So finally, before we finish, we, as always, would really like to hear what you've been doing in your setting to achieve the outcomes and things that we've been looking at through this particular collection of videos, what you've been doing to help children recognise different sorts of changes, how you've helped them to manage change, to take control by making change happen, and to manage those two challenges that we have covered in this series. So moving on to secondary school and dealing with loss and bereavement, and in particular how you keep that learning alive with so many competing priorities on the agenda across the UK, in particular in Wales. We'd absolutely love to see any photos, videos, displays, descriptions of work from your school and setting. And, you know, next time we update this, hopefully you'll see them in our updated versions and on the website, of course. So nearly at the end of the session, don't forget you can download the SEAL booklets for changes and all the secondary booklets and silver sets, the small group work, by logging into the SEAL community. You don't have to be a member, but you do have to be registered, but that's free and quick to do. You probably know they're available in English and Welsh medium. And we all know the importance of plenary, don't we? So if you have a minute or two to spare, it's really worth thinking about the tasks on this slide to consolidate the stuff that we've covered in this series, this collection of videos. Just pause the video if you'd like to have a go at that, and then we'll finish the session by showing you the session takeaways. Two takeaways together for takeaways today for schools. First one is just something to share really with the parents of children or parents or carers of children who are moving on to secondary school. I think it's just a lovely, attractive poster full of transition tips that you can download from the Young Minds website. The link is on there, but obviously you can just search Young Minds. Find Your Feet, Transition Tips for Parents, it's called, and it's got loads of just lovely ideas to kind of, you know, help parents to navigate this difficult and sometimes uncharted territory for them as well as for their children. The second takeaway is this self-assessment booklet that can be used with individual learners from nursery right through to year 6. So it summarises all of the SEAL learning outcomes, which obviously link into the health and wellbeing learning outcomes for Wales. Can be used as formative assessment, and that's probably how it's best used, so that it can feed into the learning process itself. You'll be aware, if you've watched our other videos, that these are available for all the SEAL themes on the website. So we hope you'll find these useful, as well as all the other activities and resources that we've highlighted in this video collection focusing on changes. We wish you all the best, as always, in successfully embedding an effective curricular element to your whole school approach to developing health and well-being and social and emotional skills across the whole school community. So thank you for watching, and good luck with your journey.